Hello, hello, hello. It's Crafty Chris here. I am going to be working with a winter-themed stamp set. It's a cute little stamp set. And tonight I'm going to be showing you how to use a themed stamp set in a number of different ways, and then through that demonstration of the different kinds of things you can use this for, I'll show you some interesting background techniques as well. So without further ado, I'm going to show you a couple of samples of things that I did, and then we'll work on one together. So I'm just going to move this aside. So what I did is I fussy cut a whole bunch of pieces. So I basically stamped the entire set the way it was on the mount, and I fussy cut 4 sets because I intend to make 4 cards. And I wasn't sure what parts I would necessarily use, so I just did the entire sets, 4 entire sets. So this is one of the cards I created. It's with love at Christmas time. So this is an actual Christmas card. And in the background, I've done a variation of the Aurora spreading with pearl tints that I have done many, many times. So I'll talk about some of the changes in this after we do one together. And then this is another one I did, and this is using the Aurora technique. Got a bit more turquoise in there this time. Didn't like it, so I ended up going back to 3 colors instead of 4, and I'll explain that shortly. But this is a winter birthday card, so it's using this same set. We have a Christmas card and we have a winter birthday card. And all I did was use crackle accents on the letters to get them icy looking. A little bit of crackling going on the base, which of course you can't see. But I'll go over these a little more in detail and how I did them differently to what I'm doing now. Alrighty, so the first thing you need to do is grab a couple of things. You need 2 pieces of acetate, and they need to be 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. This version I'm going to show you is not the complete version that was that I learned with Crafter's Companion, but it actually saves you a little bit of material, and it's a little bit quicker and easier, and it has a longer life than the original version. So I'll explain that again when I talk about the other cards. So with this version, what we're going to do is we're going to take our 2 pieces of acetate, and we are going to join them together right at the sides, the long sides, and we're just going to use everyday tape for that. Whoops, tape myself. Make sure you have it long enough. Alrighty. So I'm taping down my acetate, and the acetate is touching. So I'm going to trim off the excess tape I have here on both sides because I don't want that to interfere with what I'm doing. So just take your scissors and trim that off. And the original, and in a second, there we go. Fighting with my scissors there a bit. Okay, so then the original, I don't actually like those scissors. Get my bee scissors out, they're better. The original version of this, you tape your acetates, fold them in half, and then you do the technique I'm going to show you, and you seal all the way around so it's encapsulated, and it does interesting things under the encapsulation. But I'm going to do it slightly different. I am going to do the technique, show you the technique, fold it over, press it all down, but I am actually going to open it back up and let it dry, and then you get 2 backgrounds for the price of 1. So all the changes that I've done, okay, so let me slow down a little bit here. On this card, it is created by taking an acetate putting your pearl tints inside the acetate, sealing the acetate, and squishing the inks around inside. The only thing that we're going to keep from that technique is putting it inside and squishing it, but I'm going to do a couple of other things. So on my technique, my adjustment technique to this, we are going to take one side and we are going to use that side as a template, and I'm going to take clear glue and I'm just going to kind of give it an aurora borealis effect. So I'm going to come from my sides and try to remember that the aurora borealis is kind of lines, and you want to make this a little bit thicker than usual. Okay, and then that will dry. So I'm going to take, and the acetate you're using is heat resistant acetate. If you don't use heat resistant acetate, when you try to dry out your glue, it will melt your acetate. So I'm just trying to get an actual film on top of my glues. I'm not really worried about getting it completely dry, just enough to be able to put my inks, my tints rather, in the spots. I know I'm sort of rushing and it's not making sense, but you'll see in a moment. So you have your two pieces attached. One side you have the glue lines indicating where the different colors are going to build into. The reason I am adding this clear glue is I found that when you don't use something to contain it, it loses its vibrancy. So on this one you can actually see the backs of where the white glue is, but you can also see the colors are contained within those ridges, and that's one of the things I really wanted to have, because I felt that otherwise the ink would just all kind of blend together and become fairly lifeless. So you can see the different colors on this one. You can still see the different colors on this one, but it's not as effective. The other thing that happens with the sandwich version is that you end up having air pockets, as much as you like to try to get those air pockets out, and they can over time just kind of end up staying air pockets. Right now it's still fairly new, so I can smush the air pockets out, but they over time will end up being permanent. So this is why I've come to this new technique, which is to make sure, yeah, that's dry enough. Dry to the touch so that it doesn't stick. Now the three colors of tints that I've chosen to use that I like when they're all worked together are Blue Diamond, Glacial Green, and see, I really like Glacial Green, it's almost all gone, and Fragrant Lilac. So those three pearl tints are the ones that I like to use for the Aurora Borealis technique. So I'm going to start off with my purple, and I'm just going to bring it, I'm just going to smoosh a bunch out. I'm not going to worry about where it goes right now, and I'm just going to feather that out a little bit. Make sure that it hits the edge of the glue, because you don't want any air pockets as much as possible, and then you can just feather that out a little bit. You're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch around your platform, because you don't want the glue to come out the edges when you smush it. So here we go. Just making sure that I get it all together. A little bit more here. Just to get your brain started on what you're doing. So let me bring this up a little closer. So I literally am just butting the color up to and kind of spreading it out. You want about a 1/16 of an inch or a 1/32 of an inch of a layer there, so you have a smushing ability. I know my technological terms are pretty complicated, but now this is just to get me started. I will figure out how I want this to go after I get the colors on there, and I'll add more colors here, there, everywhere. So along here I want some blue. Excuse me. So I'm just adding my blue along here and just a little bit along there and maybe a little bit there, and I'm going to add some blue here. And I'm actually going to put some more blue underneath the purple. And switch this out because I want a nice big green one in the center there. And then some more blue along the circle. Whoop, getting stuck. Okay. And maybe just a little blue inside here. Now I know my 1/4 of an inch all the way around, I'm not going to see this, so I'm not as worried about what happens at the edges, but I am worried about what happens in the center part. So now I'm going to put in my green and a little bit of green there and a lot of green in here. The other thing you want to remember is what direction your card is going. If it's going horizontal, this is probably the best way to do it. If it's going vertical, you want to have those stripes in the other direction. Now, I have in mind to make a vertical card, so I've already messed up my idea right from the beginning. But that's okay because I did that on this one and it still kind of looks okay. So just fill in a little bit here and there. The green is the one I have least of, so I don't want to, probably going to use it up on this one. I've done so many cards with this technique this winter that the pearl tints go a long way actually. And if you keep it thin but wet and able to smoosh, it works out quite nice. Just make sure you don't have any air pockets. And let's see. Whoops. I think I may be close to finished. Oh, there we go. I know there's more in there. Let me just... There we go. Just have to get it off the sides. That's what it is. So you use it all up. A little bit in here, a little bit in there, a little bit along here. And you know, as you do these, the more frequent you do them, you know whether you want to have more blue, less blue. Alrighty. So we're done. So as you can see now, I'll lift it up so you can see the work. I have a ridge, ooh, except for there, I've gone too far. So that we're going to take off with a paper towel. And I have my paper towel from all my working because I keep that for my junk journal stuff. I don't even throw away my cleanup stuff. So I just want to make sure I don't go past that 1/4 inch, because if you do, you're going to run into trouble when you're smooshing it together. Alrighty. So, as you can see, I've got a 1/4 of an inch. Actually, I have more than a 1/4 of an inch around on this side. But that's okay, because I can smoosh it back and forth. There's tons of ink in there, so or tint in there, so I can move it around a little bit. So right now, it looks pretty drawing like. You can see the clear lines, but in the end, after you smushed it around a little bit, it has less of that look to it. So now you want to put it down and you're going to push to try to make sure you get the air pockets out as you move across. So you want to lay your paper or your plastic down and push out the air pockets as you go. You don't want to push down heavy, because if you do that, you're going to push all the ink out the front side. You just want to push it as you go to get that air out. And you can see where there's air pockets, and you want to push those air pockets out without pushing out the ink. You will push out ink whether you like it or not, because that is the nature of this particular technique. But now, oh, see, I've definitely got air pockets there that I don't like. And a couple here. You can't get them all out, but you can try. Okay, so as you can see now, I have it smooshed in the center. So now I'm going to move it around so that it's closer to the edges, but not too close. And I will get some out. I can tell already that's going to happen here. So when you do this smooshing around bit, that's when you'll notice that all those defined lines disappear. Now there's a whole whack of stuff. So you hang on to that, and you put that on a strip of paper, because we're going to use that as a background to our sentiment. Whoops. And you don't waste any of it. There you go. And I'm going to pull some more out of there. Just go over a little bit more. And then I'm just going to grab my paper towel and put any excess on my paper towel, because that is going to be used in a junk journal. There we go. Clean this front surface off. Little messy, but it's good to be messy. So I am just going to now move everything closer to the edge, do a little smooshing and swirling with my finger. Because I don't want those straight edges really. Okay. Look at all that lovely stuff. I'm going to get a piece of card and just squish that right out. And use it all. Because you can use this stuff for junk journals, you can use it for backgrounds on cards. I just love it. And I don't like wasting any of it. Nice. Okay, you will have to clean up your area. And this, when you spread it out with your finger, dries so quickly. It's only when it's mushed together in the plastic that it takes a little longer. And we just have a little more to do, because I want it to get right to the edge of where the seam is. Ooh, move my little guys. Alrighty, this can dry, that can dry. There we go. So I'm just moving it around so it has sort of a Aurora Borealis feel to it. Now I'm going to make sure, oh, I love that stuff. Blop. Blop, blop. Blop, 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 blop. I'm going to make sure that I have those edges clear. I'm running out of fingers. Okay, so the next step is coming up, but I just want to really get this stuff off my fingers. There we go. Alrighty, I'm getting some neat texture. Don't really want texture there. Leave you there to dry. Don't want my fingertips to show on here. There we go. All right, now I need a little bit of water, so I'm just going to take my water brush. Don't unscrew it. Pull it. Ugh. There we go. So I'm just going to water down my fingers with my brush. That's all I'm doing, just to wet up all that stuff. The nice thing about a water brush is you just wipe it out in a, squish it and wash it out into a napkin to get it out of, to get the whatever you're doing off your water brush. And I'm just wiping my fingers in. Actually, maybe I'll just put a pile of water right there. There we go. My water brush can go there. Just want to make sure everything is dry. Okay, now I'm going to put this here. I just want to wipe up anything that's wet off my mat. Now, you will notice that there is some gunk on my mat. You can see down here all the gunk on my mat. It is dry enough to work over top of, but what I'll do afterwards is I'll take my napkin that I'm putting all this junk on, and then I'll just wipe it down and it'll all come off into my napkin. But for now, it's not going to get stuck. All right, so now we're going to clear our space just a little bit, and we are now going to open up. Make sure that's all dry. Yep. We are going to open this up. So just one more little rub. Make sure everything's touched. And now I'm going to open up between the two. And you get this really cool texture thing happening. So at this point, I would have kept them together and taped around the side to do the original technique. But because I don't want this stuff shifting and changing, I want to save it just the way it is. So I use a heat gun, but I hold the heat gun up very high. So I'm giving it a foot off the ground. And that is just to give it a little bit so that the temperature is cooler at the bottom here. And I just want to seal that up just a couple of minutes just to get it curing. And this part does take a while to dry. Okay, and it is still wet, just so that you know. And now I'm going to take my piece of tape off the two pieces. There we go. Put that right into the garbage. And now I have my two separate pieces, and they are going to dry. Don't touch the wet side, because if you touch the wet side, you'll be very disappointed, because it will leave fingerprints. Now this is my dry one from the other night, and I'm just going to move the wet ones out of the way. It is best to leave them to dry overnight if you can, if you know you're going to do this. Otherwise, by the time you finish, you can dry it with a hairdryer. So this now is my finished one. And it looks pretty cool. Like you can still see. Now this was the side. Let me see. So this piece here had the glue on it. So you can see the defined lines of the glue. This was the other side. So the two of them were sandwiched together. And this doesn't have the glue on it. But because it wasn't mushed around and it was left to dry open, it now will not move. The thing I found about the technique when it was wet inside and it stayed wet for a little while was that it moved around too much and just ended up blending into itself. So this is a much better way, I feel, than to do this, because look, I've got the bubble. I can keep pressing that bubble down, but unless I press it down at the point it's going to dry, it will end up eventually drying like that, which is unfortunate. So this is why I've adjusted and created this different way of doing things. Okay, so now I have a card base here, and this is going to be a baby card. So this is going to be a welcome little one card. So I already have my base, and this is my little one. I have to do a little bit to these before I use them. So this one needs just a little bit more fussy cutting. Actually, I'm going to use his head. So I'm just cutting them past his shoulder blade there, because he's going to be coming out of the water, so I don't need his whole body. But I do need to finish up a little bit of fussy cutting on his head. Sorry about that. I thought I had done that, but it appears I had not. So I'm going to go off and do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have just rounded a little bit on the bottom of his head for when he comes out of the water. And his body I can keep and use as playing in the water on another card. So I would just use the part of his body that was jumping in and out of the water. So I'm not going to get rid of that. I want my little fishy guys. And I'm just going to trim this in here. Now these little fishy guys are awkward, but if you keep them together and just color them similar to the background, you can see that the blue, well, I'll show you when I'm coloring. So I'm going to start off with a gray marker, and I have water markers here, and I'm going to start off with my big wet wide water brush, and I'm just going to put a pile of gray in there. Now the gray on its own is way too dark, so I'm going to put a little bit of a pile of water over here. I'm going to take some of this in there, scooch it around, and now what I want to do with the ice is I want to place gray just where there might be a little bit of shadowing. And this brush is rather big, so I might switch to my smaller one to spread it out a little better. Yeah, that one's a little too big. And just a little bit of gray here and here. And definitely slightly darker gray up under the belly of the baby, along the bottom of the baby. The sleeping baby. Alrighty. Something like that. And I think I might do a little bit more down those to make them look a little bit more like indents. And the water will color a different color. So there's the beginnings of my baby. There's still more to do, but it just gives you a little more depth on them. Now I want my fish to definitely be gray, but I don't want them too gray, and I want their faces to be white. So I'm coloring in everything but their faces. And the reason why I am making them gray is I want the lips of these fish to pop out because the lips are so cute. So I'll show you what I'll do with those in a moment. There we go. A little more darkness here. And I'm going to go a little darker under their belly. And the bottom of their tails. And a little bit of darkness there. Okay. Alrighty, so that's my fish. I want to do the big fish the same way, so I still have a little bit of this on my plate. He's going to be the mommy fish, I guess. And his tail pops out of the water. And then I'm just going to wipe off. And try to get sort of a darker blend in there at the bottom. Alrighty. And then this guy is going to need to have a shadow. Just a little under his chin. A little in the back of his neck. Okay. And my South Pole is going to have a little bit of shadow. Oops, need a little darker shadow. A little bit of shadow down one side of the post. And shadow underneath the snow. And a little around the side. And a couple of little lines just to make it look woodish. Alrighty, so there is my coloring done. I'm going to just wipe this up with my never-ending piece of paper towel. And we're just going to dry these out. So I need to take something that I can just hold these with. And give it a dry. This one's probably almost dry anyway. Doesn't need a lot. There we go. Whoops. So that's how you can use water markers. I love gray water markers because they really do help you when you're coloring to give a nice undertone. So if you're going to invest in any water markers at all, I would do cool gray and warm gray water markers. Alrighty, now I take my colors. So these fish have to have bright red lips. They just have to, and I'm using a Tri-Blend pen. And I'm going to use the dark end, and I'm just going to fill in those bright red lips. There we go. So just giving those guys, oh, he doesn't have a lip. Red lips. He's fine the way he is. This I am going to add some blue to. and this I'm going to color brown. So I'm using Tri-Blend Tan, and I'm using the darkest color. So I'm going to color this down. And across. Make sure not to get onto the icicles or the snow. And then I take my Tri-Blend Gold Brown, the darkest color, and I add that on top. And then for the sake of not having a good dark brown in my collection, I've got a Spectrum Aqua marker called Boulder. Then I'm just going to go over that gray a little bit. And I'm going to take my small water marker or brush and just blend that a little bit. Okay, so there he is. That's my South Pole. Actually, that's way too dark, so I'm just going to keep blending that out. There we go. Alrighty, so we have our little fish, and with color markers and water, it's always a good idea to go back in and once everything is dry and just see where you might want to add a little bit more color. Just darken up those bottom areas. Okay, give it a little more definition. Ooh! Yeah, working with two tools at one time is good for accidents to happen. Okay, and just a little more there and there. Just a little more there and there. There we go. A little more there. There. So I'm just letting the water grab it and migrate it for me. And maybe just a little there and there and there. There we go. Alrighty, so they are ready to go. That is ready to go. Almost. There's a couple other things to do. So now this one. Whoops. Get rid of the gray marker. And put the lid on all your water markers or water brushes. That needs cleaning, and the easiest way to clean it is just squish some water through it, rub it on a paper towel, and then it's clean. Better than leaving it dirty. Okay, So now I want to take my Tri-Blend marker that is called Ice Blue, and I'm going to use the lightest end, and I'm just now going to go in where I feel actually I want to do that up and down. So I'm covering over that gray with light blue. And just kind of want to cover over that. Okay, a little bit there, a little bit there. Okay. Then I'm going to take the opposite end. Well, maybe I'll try the mid blue, and I'm just going to go closest to the edge with the mid blue, just to give it a feeling of depth, just right around there, and just a little bit down, right along the baby. Right inside, along this edge. There we go. And then the dark blue end I'm going to use for the water. So there's quite a bit of contrast there. And then along the bottom edge, because we know that there's reflection on icebergs of the water below. Okay, and so there we go. There's our little guy more or less done. These guys need to have some blue water, same color as the baby's iceberg. Okay, this guy is going to have a blue water edge. And I kept it a little bit wobbly. This is not dry enough yet, so let's get that dry. Get my thing that will help me hold it. Because the thing you don't want to do is put alcohol ink on top of water. It doesn't like it. It will destroy your paper. So I'm using the dark end and just going in around the fish's fin on this side. And I'm not sure about whether I'm going to keep this fish on the other side. We'll have to wait and see how it fits into my idea. But I may cut him off. All right, now we need to put, before we go to actually putting everything together, we need to put some fluffy stuff and other things. So along the snow pole, the South Pole sign, I am going to put, oh, first of all, I'm going to put some glue on the back of this and a little bit of glue on the back of that. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to hold this flat to my mat, because I'm going to be doing a three-dimensional fluffy stuff at the bottom here. So I want some fluffy stuff at the bottom of my pole, and then across there. I'm leaving my icicles. And now I want to add heat to that. Move all my other things out of the way. So I'm just going to puff this up, but I want you to begin to see what happens with fluffy stuff when you heat it. So before I do that, I'm going to show you up close. It's, oops, fairly flat. And now I'm going to fluff it up. So you see how it's all rippled up, and this is rippling up down here too. So it goes from flat and smooth to fluffy, and I'll lift that up so you can see it better in a moment. Just gotta get back up here. Just gotta let it cool a moment. Oh, that's not ready to go yet. Okay, so I want to release this all together. That's going to take another minute. So again, I don't want to put heat on that. I just want to put air. So I'm going to hold my thing up about, I would say, about a foot above, and I'm going to heat it until this is dry enough to move. Okay, I just moved this off to the side so it's out of the way. It's upside down so the back side can get warmed up or get dried up. And I have a little bit of fluffy stuff I want to add to the edge of this. Oh, just found something without a lid. And as you can see, my workspace gets really messy. Sometimes it starts really messy. Where did the lid go? Oh well. We'll figure that out later. Okay, so I want to put some fluffy stuff, just a little bit. So I'm putting it really thin to the point where it may not do much of anything. I'll show you in a moment how thin I'm using it. So you can see how thin I put it on there. Very, very thin. There will be some kind of interaction, but I have no idea how much of an interaction. So my suggestion when you're doing all of this stuff would be to make sure that you do multiples at one time. So while one thing is drying, you can work on something else and do them all sort of in stages. Okay, that's looking good. Okay. So it's just got a little bit of texture. Why is my camera not focusing? Camera does not want to focus, but you can see a little bit. Maybe it's the light. Let's take down this light a bit. Okay, that's up. There we go. Now you can sort of see a little bit of fluffy stuff. Alrighty, that goes with that. Okay, so I have that with fluff on it. These guys don't need fluff. I have this guy, I have that guy. I have my welcome sign. I have a piece of paper I'm going to mount my little tag on that I just put some of the leftover stuff that we were playing with. And now let me show you what to do with this. So this now is going to go on your page, and before it would go on your page as a sandwich, so you'd have two sides to it and you just pick the side you like the most. Again, if we go back to this, you can now see that bubble again. So it's just going to keep reappearing, and if you have the time to close it every single time, maybe you'll get it on that day where it dries, but you may not. So this is what I find is the easiest way, because this is already done. It's got the paint on one side and it's got the shiny surface on the other. Now you can use either side. I prefer to have the shiny side because it is a background, but you don't have to. So what I'm going to do right now is glue this down, and I am going to glue it with a little bit of tape. And this tape is going to go around the outside edges. Doesn't have to be thick tape or thin tape, whatever you have, but remember you have to have 1/4 of an inch border around it. So I'm putting this right up to the edge. And you're going to probably need to be careful taking this off because you're on a slick surface and you don't want to remove the actual ink that's underneath. So I haven't done this before, so we'll see if this works. I usually just glue it down with regular adhesive. Alrighty, that came off all right. So far, so good. Make sure you get it nice and pushed down. Oh, it's working, it's working. Excuse me. It works. You just have to be super careful. Now, I want to know, let's see, I like this kind of down here as possibly being the water. So when I lay this in here, I'm going to lay it centered, and we're just going to press it right down, nice and flat, so that it's just sitting on top. Then I'm going to make a frame for this. So get yourself a piece of 5.5 by 'I lost all my cardstock. Okay, I'm going to use a card. So you're going to need a piece of 4.25 by 5.5 inch card. And I'm just going to use a card because I don't have it handy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut that 1/2 inch border. So on my cutter, I can see a 1/2 inch border right here. So I can line it up there. And then I also can see a 1/2 inch coming down. So that puts me in the place where I can start to create a frame. So go from a 1/2 inch to 5 inches here. Okay, and there's my cut. And then I line it up with the 1/2 inch border again. And I line up with the 1/2 inch from the top. And I go down to the 5, this time I go down to the 3 3/4 inch. Okay. And then I line up with my 1/2 inch, start at my 1/2 inch at the top, oops, and I'm coming down to my 5 inch, and then I'm doing my 1/2 inch here again, oops, starting at my 1/2 inch mark at the top, and going down to my 3 3/4 inch. And there is my frame. Okay, and this is an awesome piece of paper to keep for backgrounds and cards and frames and mats and all those wonderful things. Never throw paper away. So when I put this on, it beautifully mats what's going on in the background. So what I want to do is adhere this, and you can just use your regular, that's finished, use your regular tape. This is one of those refillable, so you can just get the cartridge and refill it, as was the big one. I think I like the big one the best because it I don't have to keep changing it as often. Oops. And I'm not going evenly along the edge here. So if you get any overage like that, you just tuck it under. It's no big deal. I had bad aim. That's all that was. Okay. And then how I do it is I just stand the two pieces up and line it up across the top, and it usually fits perfectly. So there we go. We've got our background. Look at how pretty that Aurora Borealis is in there. And that is not going to change now because it's not liquid and it doesn't move. So that will stay as is. Now I just want to, first of all, we're going to straighten these guys out just a little. There we go. So now I want to put my pieces on. Like that. And I think this guy needs something like that around the bottom. So we'll fix that in a minute. Now, if I put this over here, and this here, I think that's too many things. And I want this to be over here anyway. Okay. Let's glue this on. So I have my title. And I'm going to put that on here, centered. Okay, and I think I'm going to trim in to match. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to go in on this side. And I find that when you're trimming to a point like this, it's best to pull away from the tip. So when you put your tip in there, pull it away as you make the cut, and it usually ends up smoother. There we go. Alrighty, so there's my tag. Welcome, little one. And we have our South Pole. Yeah, I'm not liking these fish. I'll use them on a different one. This one, see how we have the little fluffy stuff at the bottom there, like snow? Maybe I will do it this way. We're going to have the South Pole there. Like that. Welcome little one. I'm going to pop dot that. I'm going to pop dot him. Okay. So, let me just finish off this. Put some adhesive at the bottom. And I have some here, but I need a tiny bit more. Oh, goodness. I smashed it. Uh-oh. I forgot that that can happen. You can smash your oh, what do you call this? Fluffy stuff. You can smash it, and I just did because it was thicker. It wasn't completely dry, but I'll show you how to fix that. And then welcome little one. I think I'll put that on with pop dots, which I happen to have right here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Welcome little one. Right across there. And this guy is going to get pop dotted. But I first need to put a little thing around the bottom under him that looks like a water pile before I pop dot him. So I'm going to take that one off. This one, we're going to stick him right on there. There we go. Now we're going to put the pop dots on. And I'm just going to take a black marker and I'm just going to create a ripple effect. And trim it down a little bit because I think there's too much. Take my pop dots off. There we go. There we go. And I think I only need one pop dot. So I'm going to trim this one in half. With my dog hair on it. There we go. There we go. That's my hair on that one. Between my dog and I. There we go. Oop, helps if you take the cover off of here. There we go. Now, I need to get my light blue again because we're going to color that in. And then my dark blue is going to go right around here. Okay, this guy is going to go flat. Right there, because he's looking at the kid, the new child. And didn't get anything there, so I'm just going to put some glue there. Okay, so fixing this just a little bit. Very thin layer. Okay, let's do a little heating. There we go. All right. Oh, final details. You need to have a Wink of Stella pen, and you're going to go in and you're just going to glossy up those end areas and go carefully over top of the snow. And that gives it a little bit of glisten. I forgot to, where's my blue pen? Light blue, do the icicles. And then on the icicles, you're going to do a little bit of glossy sparkle. And on the fish, you're going to sparkle him up because he's wet. And I think that that's it. Just make sure you get that sparkly stuff going on the snow. Now this is still wet, so I'll do more of the sparkle on this when it is completely dry. And glossy accents. I know all my little favorite things are going into this. So glossy accents, small dot on the nose, small dot on the eyes, lips for sure, baby bear nose for sure. We're going to put a little bit on the icicles so they sparkle and they're 3D glossy. And we are done. So let me bring that up to you so you can see the little sparkles on the snow. Look at how they sparkle. I hope you can see that. I can see it anyway. This I haven't done obviously because it's still wet. So that's our little Welcome Little One. So we have made a birthday card with the full, we've seen the full way to do it, then the quick and easy way to do it. And I am going to make a fourth card, not right at this time because I'm moving to, I've done enough for today, but I'm going to do a second card, which is a welcome to your new home. So I'm going to be putting this guy on here. I'm going to cut him off. And I'm going to put an igloo in place. Still going to use the South Pole. And I had an idea that I was going to do this and this. And I was going to cut his head off again off there. And make a splash and relax, and over top it was going to say welcome to your new home. Actually they're not colored yet, so it's very hard to see, but this is more or less the layout. This guy is just going to have a head coming up, And we can have one of our guys diving. So this will be covered with water. So there's a diving one and a head one and a welcome to your new home or happy new home or something like that. All of this created with the same stamp. Your Polar Playtime same stamp. So any stamp that you have that is seasonal, all you have to do is change the context and you can use it for different things. That's all I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed this. Please review and rewind if you're not understanding anything, or contact me in the chat and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Have an awesome day. Bye now.